Well, good afternoon and a very warm welcome to everybody, whether you are here live or watching on the replay. Please do let us know, #live, #replay. My name is Tamsin Sands and I am joined today, I'm very excited, by the lovely, brilliant, bundle of positive energy, Lorraine McGuinness. Lorraine, you're very welcome. Thank you so much for joining us today.
My pleasure. I've been excited all week, for weeks.
Thank you, Lorraine. So Lorraine is a professional CV writer. She's been running her own successful CV writing business, cvtips and tricks. And we're going to chat today all about the CV, and we're going to follow up next week at the same time in this group, Mums Returning to Work and Regaining Financial Independence, with LinkedIn, in how to write your LinkedIn profile and use LinkedIn effectively. But today it's all about the CV. We've received a few questions, which we're going to chat through about. And I just want to share how I first met Lorraine. So for me, and I've been quite open about it, I wrestled with my CV. I was out of work for over 12 years. I'm an expat wife. I was traveling with my kids. I have 4 kids. We were moving country every 3 years. And I really enjoyed that period being out of work. Or I was working, I was very busy, I was very fulfilled, I was doing a lot of voluntary work. But when I moved to Ireland in 2014, I wanted to return to work and I struggled. And I wrote my CV, I invested in sort of online platforms to help me, but I got no response. And I actually ran my own dog walking business for several years. But then in 2019, I was very keen to re-enter the workplace, reached out to another whole set of recruitment consultants, and one put me in touch with Lorraine because she said my CV just wasn't strong enough. And that was when I met Lorraine. And it was a pivotal moment for me, Lorraine. I know I've shared this with you, but what I really took away from our couple of sessions together is the way in which you work with your clients to actually write the CV. I found that very, very powerful, just spending the time going through what I had done, listing things, you asking very pertinent questions. I actually found that one of the most useful things I had done in my journey back to work. And also how you translated what I had done into actionable, meaningful skills and experience. So that's how we first met. And since I've started my group and been in this space helping mums returning to work, I've always actually just wanted to do this, to introduce you to the group and for you to share your knowledge and wisdom with us, because as I say, you've had such a sort of transformational help with me. So Lorraine, I'd just like you to introduce yourself a little bit more, and then we can get chatting.
Get going. Okay. Thank you, Tamsin. That was lovely. Lovely little introduction. It was a pleasure working with you as well back then. Now again, let's go. So yeah, I'm trained in human resources, and I came out of the college at the end of the recession. So you can imagine how it was very difficult in Ireland anyway. It's very difficult to find any HR jobs unless you have 9 months experience. And when you come out and you're just newly qualified, it's even more difficult to find a graduate job. But I did for a while, and it was very difficult in general because it was all schemes and internships and no actual paid work at that time in the northwest of Ireland anyway, unless I wanted to move to Dublin or Galway or Cork. It was pretty much very difficult. But I went, you know, I powered through, and but no, I then moved to Sligo, which is where I'm based, and I actually dabbled in marketing. So because I was always mixed between marketing and HR, but you know, that was a kind of a, I've always had a creative approach, I suppose. I've always done creative writing in my spare time. And look, the job market wasn't very good in general. So then I decided to, I worked in web design, I guess, as well. But then I decided when I was there at web design, to set up my own business, because I was like, I've had enough. I've had enough of not finding actual work. It's all internships. It's all, you know, and I'm aware that internships in different countries mean different things. You don't get paid some of them. So I was like, I've had enough. So I decided to set up my own business. But I first got experience from an American company, actually, because America is a US-based company, I should say. They're very good at promoting themselves on paper, whereas the Irish and anywhere else, really, they're very humble. They're very humble, let's just say. So I refined my craft there, and then I set up my business 2016, and I'm still going.
Thank you for sharing that with us. That's very interesting.
Yeah,
Thank you.
so I'm still, no, it's grand. It's grand.
Yeah.
It's my journey, and that's how I pitch people's CVs. It's a journey. It's not, you know, this, that, or the other. If you doubt, like, I know we haven't dived into questions, but that's how it is. It's a professional journey, and how you get there is up to you. And so it, you know, you may have started in one thing and moved your way to different things, and you're now looking at something else, and that's actually that's very important, because along the way you're learning all those new skills. You're learning more about yourself, what you can do, and what you need to do maybe to improve yourself further. So everything is a journey, and so here I am. Here's my journey. You know, I'm HR. I still, you know, I am technically kind of still in HR, with the recruitment element of it, but you know, I've always been interested in the legal side of it, and you know, the creative writing has helped with my own style, because every writer has their own style. And here I am in my journey, and here I am now.
Oh, well, thank you, Lorraine. And I think that it's so interesting what you say about the journey, because definitely for mums returning back into the workspace, if you've been out for a period of time, definitely I would agree with you there. You've got to actually embrace the journey, look forward to the journey, and not be afraid of it. I know I used the word, I wrestled with my CV. I was just wrestling with the process. And that actually didn't serve me. So absolutely, it's going to be a bit of a journey. It's going to take a little bit of time, a little bit of soul searching, really working out if you can detach yourself from time. You know, don't have time as pressure, because that's very suffocating. Allow yourself to, you know, be aware of the journey, embrace the journey, as you say, and not be afraid if you don't quite have all the skill sets for where you want to go, because everything can be learned. You know, everything can be learned. Particularly as mums, we're very good at
adapting,
our hand at new
flexibility, adapting.
Yeah, absolutely.
Prioritizing. Resourcefulness, there's so much.
I know, a lot
You just don't think about it, I guess, when you're in a certain environment. You're like, you don't have to be, so I say, you don't have to be in a professional environment to learn things. Be doing sports, could be voluntary, could be in your community, could be anything. You learn all the time. All the time. And so
no, I think so let's crack on to some of the questions we have. And I also feel the CV, you know, what is the role of the CV? And I actually think for mums, I know for me, of course, the role of the CV is to land a callback, is to land an interview. But I actually think for a lot of mums who might not have clarity, the actual role of the CV is a starting point to that soul searching work. And I know in working with you, that's for me where it was transformational, actually having someone who was interested in what I had to say, who was really digging asking the questions about, going back to that piece of voluntary work, exactly what did you do? Who did you speak to? What did you earn? What did you generate? All of that I found very, very helpful. So I feel the CV is, and now such a time at the end of the year when we're reviewing things, getting ready for 2023, is a good time just to have a think about where you are, everything you've got. Yeah. So the role of the CV, I'm waffling now, but what I'm trying to say is more than just landing an interview. It actually can really help if you're right at the start of returning to work, just beginning to get down onto paper what you enjoy doing, your roles. I mean, and where would you start? What would the starting point be, do you think?
Yes. So I totally agree with Tamsin. It is, writing a CV isn't just about putting down what you did. It's about what the results of that action was. So it's about, I suppose, the role of the CV, as you said, it is about finding clarity in yourself. So if there's people out there who are unsure as to, if someone asks you, what do you think you're good at? What are your strengths? And they go, oh, geez, I don't really know. Well, then you look through, this is what I do. I think I've done this with you, Tamsin, if you're right there. So, when we were talking, it was more about, okay, well, what did you enjoy from it? Was it be engaging with people? Was it building your own business? Because the dog walking was something you were doing yourself. You had to grow it. Was it connecting, building clients? Was it whatever it might have been? And it's to find those themes in the CV and then putting them together into a document. So you don't have to always look at everything that you've done in your CV or in your past work history. It's more about where you want to go in the future, and then how you change the information to suit that goal as such. And yes, once you then build that, you then start to build your confidence in yourself. You go, oh, I am good at that actually. And then when you start thinking like that, then you actually start to see jobs that appeal to you more, because then you're realizing, oh, just because you're in one industry doesn't mean you can't transfer that skill into another industry, because realistically, the main differences between industries might be the type of standards or the processes or something like that. But in a nutshell, like, the job itself is more or less the same. It could even be, again, who you're engaging with. There could be other little factors, but essentially the job role is the same. So then you'd start looking at, let's say, people, for example, the clarity. Let's say you find, I like people. Then you'll find that there's a lot of jobs out there, people. There's relationship, like marketing alone, there's the relationship managers and account managers, there's client success managers, there's marketing managers themselves. And then if you're in marketing, you can do branding, you can do creative elements, PR. There's so much then. There's so not everything's under one shell. But then once you find that, then it's about putting it together, isn't that right? It's about putting it together.
Yeah, absolutely.
So really, when I say there is core elements to a CV, there is your personal details. You kind of need those. You need those. But then you have a profile, which I call it a profile. It could be called a summary. You don't necessarily have to have a heading either, but it's a little paragraph at the top of the page. And I think Tamsin and I were chatting, and I think somebody mentioned about an elevator pitch. So it's about how you use that to pitch yourself in the right way. And what you do is you look at things that are value adding to you, but also to the company. This is for the whole CV, but then the profile will help to condense it. And you look at certain skills that you can bring, certain skills you may have additional to the job description as well, which shows the value. And then you kind of summarize how or why you are, why they should read on, basically, why they should continue to read. I know I've said a little bit here, but there are things I can forward on to Tamsin at some point, and be able to get more in depth. But it's more about looking at positioning yourself as well in that the type of role you're looking for. So I think, let's just say with branding, like you could say you're a brand ambassador, you could say you're a brand advocate, you could say you're a brand executive. But if you don't want to say that, you can also say experienced professional with X amount of years. And even if you've been out of work, you still have those X amount of years of experience behind you. So, or you could, if you don't feel confident, so that's the other thing too. If you don't feel comfortable saying something, don't put it in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because that'll catch you out then in an interview sense. If you put something in and you're like, oh, sorry, I'm waffling myself now.
No, you're not at all. And is the exec summary, I mean, for me, I do struggle with that. That probably is something you write sort of at the end almost, is it? Sort of,
yes.
You know,
yes, I'm telling you now, when I write CVs, I go to the jobs first, then I go to the profile and the skills, because you'll bog yourself down first off trying to, and then you'll get flustered. I mean, everything will be put off, you know, be like, I know I don't want to do it now. Always look at your jobs first, and then or jobs, voluntary experiences, anything, education, everything else first, because they're the easiest things to rattle off. Then go to your profile and your skills. And they should always be together as well. The skills, like the elevator pitch, also includes skills. And I know I said in the paragraph mentioned some skills, but it's less the keywords. It's more about you know, how you put your experience in practice to do something, and then put in maybe team elements or leadership elements or collaboration elements in there. Again, how you use that to do something, to achieve something in the little paragraph. And then the skills are basically action words, keywords and things. So I'm doing this because in my head I'm visualizing the CV.
Yeah, you've got it. I know you have a very clear layout. We'll just touch on it. Of course, there are a lot of companies now. There is sort of the big companies will all use automated tracking systems, won't they? So how do we bypass those?
Action words, action orientated language. So the language is very important. Again, when you find out, okay, I'm this way or that way, the language of how you put your action across is very important. So not important, but it helps to show off the fact that you can do these things. So verbs are very important. So if you were saying, I'm trying to think off the top of my head some examples, but no, verbs are very important, action verbs. And always like mix them up if possible. So like manage is more about management, it's more senior sounding, and you're managing a team, but you can also manage a project. But normally I use it for managing a team as such, because it's more, you are managing a team. And but if you change that to collaborate with a team, it actually changes the meaning of the sentence. It changes the language. It makes it softer in a way. It makes it less kind of, I'm up here in the management level, more here in line with my peers. Do you know what I mean? It just changes how it reads as well. If you illustrate something, or demonstrate something, there are two different things as well. Illustrate to me means that you're actually putting it together on paper or putting it somewhere and drawing it out and being creative, whereas demonstrating something is what I'm doing now. I'm demonstrating how you can build a CV, you know, so you're actually giving more of a talk about something, or you're physically showing how something works. Do you know what I mean? A verb changes the sentence altogether. So action orientated language. What I would always say as well is, if you are using verbs, look, I know I'm the one who has experience writing, so I'm not saying do it. I'm saying it's good practice to try and not repeat verbs more than twice if possible. And if you are writing your CV and going through your duties, look at things that are similar to one another and try and put them together to make a story. That's how I look at it. Everything's a story. And then everything you do has a result, whether it be actual result with figures or facts or whatever it might be. But it could also be that you led a team and that's a skill that you gained, or that it helped to improve something or increase something, or, you know, you introduce something, that's also a result as well. So that's how you would beat with the ATS, as well as the format of it as well. So if you have a lot of graphical, some CVs might have a third of the page with all the information here, and then this little bit here with information, that could hinder the how it's read, we'll say.
Yeah.
So how you present the information is also important. Now you can use bullet points as well. Do use bullet points, but how I say, use them strategically so that you aren't just bullet pointing everything. You're actually drawing the reader to key things that you want to talk about or highlight on your CV. But the main thing with ATS is the tracking system is the language. That's actually the main bit. Keywords. So use the job description as well to help you with shaping your CV, but don't copy paste from the job description, but use it to see, like, okay, they said CMS, the client management, or customer manager, customer management system, CMS system, anyway, some sort of system. And if you've worked with something like that in your CV, put it in.
And I think, isn't it, so sort of going back to the role of the CV, for us it's to get a call back, to land an interview, but of course for the companies, they're looking to see whose CV matches the job description, the experience, the best, aren't they? So it's sort of bearing that in mind.
And your experience levels and everything is important. Again, I know that if there's people who have been out of work for a while, what you can do is you bring it up forward. So like, as I was saying, I think I started and then I went off somewhere, but no, like there's always a format and a layout of the CV, and personal details, profile skills should always be at the very top, regardless. That doesn't matter about everything else. They should always be there. Then what follows next, as long as you have the education and your actual work history on your CV, everything else you can add in. You can add in extra sections as well. So if you have been out of work for a while, let's just say, you could bring up, you can add another section where it's relevant experience, and you can bring forward experience that relates to where you want to work, or where you want to go, what jobs you're applying for, sorry. If you are transitioning careers, for example, you could also add in an achievements section, because maybe you want to highlight that you have certain skills that relate to the job that you're going for, but you don't have direct experience yet. You can put it in there. You can create a skills-based CV, which is where you, again, it could be under the heading of key skills, but instead of just listing out phrase keywords, you'd have the keyword and then an example as to where you put it into practice, so that you can bring it forward that way. Voluntary experience as well, you can add in. So that helps to add to your experience level, you see. All of that adds to your experience level. And if you have been involved with parents committees, which I've seen, parents committees, extracurricular activity, you're a treasurer for a club, or you're doing things in your community, add those in as well, because that is experience. You're learning if you're a treasurer, you're learning about accounting, you're learning about bookkeeping, you're learning about things. Doesn't matter how big or small scale it is, it's more you are learning, and you can, do it if needs be, but it's not something you might be looking at. Don't know if that answered your question there, but it's something extra anyway.
Absolutely.
That helps with ATS. That does help with the ATS
around, because I do know, and I've seen a few CVs that have tables and stuff like that. So it really is to keep the formatting easy to read, but don't avoid tables, but use bullet points strategically to highlight key skills.
And all that.
And all that. And very interesting how you're talking about the headings there. So what I'm getting from you is there is no exact way actually to write the CV. It can be, you need to get the information across, but you can vary the headings according to the experience that you have, and of course the role that you're applying for.
So again, this is my approach to CV writing. There could be other CV writers out there who say, don't do that, put it all this way and that's the only way. I'm more of how you present it on a page is actually very important, because even if you're applying to a small company, the CV eventually goes in front of somebody, even somebody who gets into the, you know, if you're screened, it still goes in front of a recruiter or goes in front of someone. So what you want is to be able to show the more value adding information on the first page, because they just scan it very quickly, because if it's already been screened, they know that you're probably going to be, you know, a good fit, or maybe a good fit, so they'll invite you to an interview. But it is still important to have the more value, well, everything's value adding, but the more important information on the first page. So what I do sometimes with people who are maybe graduates, or, you know, there could be people in your right now who are studying and are unsure how to represent that on their CV. I would always put that up front, because especially if they're transitioning careers, because then it shows I am learning something new in a new area. And so it would be personal details, profile, skills, education, qualifications, all of that, you know. Then I would say, okay, are you doing any projects that might relate to where you're applying for, that your learning experience, like academically, you're learning the theory behind it, you want to get practical experience, because that's what you want to say. They'd be like, yeah. So I put in academic projects, the projects or research, depending on what it is. And then I go into just the chronological work history. Do you know what I mean? Or again, if it's relevant experience, or experience that's historical, as I say, I don't say again relevant or relevant. I know I say relevant and relevant, but in this case, it's historical experience. If it relates, then I bring that up, and then I do the little tiny bit of the professional experience, because you don't really need it, or it doesn't relate, or whatever it might be. So yeah, and then again, voluntary experience can go in at the end, or it can be brought forward if you feel it adds more value to you being on the front page or closer to the front page. So yeah, if you look at your CV as value and non-value compared to relevant and irrelevant, it will help you then to go, actually, that's not, I don't want this in my CV right now, because it won't help me right now. I'll keep it out. Simple. You know what I mean? So yeah, there is, in my head, there is no one size fits all CV. There's no perfect CV, because you can never tailor a CV to every job. You can't,
No.
like to the letter, like you can't.
Yeah.
It's just impossible.
And we're all individuals, aren't we? And I know I wrestle with it a bit, because I felt that I didn't fit the mold particularly of your typical employee. You know, I had this gap. I had done a load of different things, and what I had loved about the voluntary sector is that you could change sectors. So I was working in the education sector with my children, then very in charitable sectors, very dog-minded, and riding for disabled as well, and
regulated,
and then I sort of felt, oh, and you're trying to put me into this sort of straight jacket of a, you know, document. But actually the way you wrote it, the way we worked with different headings. So I think for me, what worked was professional highlights, and then relevant experience, and then my corporate experience came at the end. But I do think for mums who have been out, just make sure that the relevant information, the experience, the skills are on the first page, and not hiding on the second page. Because I mean, I was reading a stat the other day, I think people spend like 90 seconds on a CV, you know, it really is. So you do need that executive summary to be punchy. And
but no, you're right, because I would just quickly, I'm sharing just a very quick case study, I should say. But no, this woman I did work for, and she was concerned because she was out of work for 20 years, like active work for 20 years, because she was raising a family. And I was like, no problem. Let's look at what you have, and let's see how we can work with it. And I did just that. I put her relevant experience, because she wanted to go back into the area she was working in. And I just focused more on that, more so than the fact that she was out of work. Because you're not actually out of work when you're a mum, or a parent, but a mum in particular. You're never out of work. You have to manage the house. You have to manage your kids. You have to go and make sure, organize. A lot of organization going on. A lot of voluntary things that you're roped into, probably, or you volunteer yourself, but you could be roped into. So that's also what I looked at too. I looked at, okay, is she involved with anything? And she was involved with them. Her children were young, and so they were young, and she was involved with the parents committee. She was involved with the coaching, I think, of schools and stuff. So I added that in to show you weren't just sitting down doing nothing. You're actually more active than you realize when you do sit down and think about it. And she got an interview and she got the job.
Yeah.
It was more, that's the thing, the CV is used for the interview, but it's because we focused it towards where she wants to go and didn't look at the fact that she was out of work. You know what I mean? Because she wasn't. No. And she had experience before she started the family as well. So we kind of, put that in as well, then the family bit, and then we brought the relevant stuff up, and so we focused it towards where she wants to go. So that's what, just bringing on the formatting and achievements, and be proud of it, and because you do a lot more than you think.
I know. I hear it so many times. I hear it, myself included. You devalue what you're doing. Your day has spent managing the house logistics here, voluntary work here, doing all of this.
It's second nature, because you're in autopilot. You're like, you're just moving around, like
real sort of deadlines as well to work to. So just to talk about a lot of questions I get asked is around transferable skills. So as a mum, and is this weight of the transferable skills and experience in a particular sector? So I actually do feel, we'll take transferable skills initially. How do you present those skills? We've touched upon it already, really. It's about identifying them, isn't it, in what you have been doing, and then understanding the appropriate language in which to demonstrate what you've actually done.
Like transferable skills, really. So there's two types of skills. I'm not sure if you're aware, Tamsin, but I'll explain now. There's two types of skills. There's hard skills and soft skills. And the hard skills are the ones you learn through education, through working, through on-the-job training, whatever it might be. Things you have to physically learn to make it into a skill that you can do. Soft skills are the ones that you naturally have, where it's like, people management, leadership, prioritizing, organizing, all of that stuff. Project management, anything like that. Because at the end of the day, project management is just being able to keep time, scheduling, prioritize the work, find out what resources you have, and if you don't have them, purchase them, and budgeting. Really, that's like, it sounds like a lot more, but everyone has done a version of project management in their life, professional or personal life. So how you, I suppose, represent them is, you don't necessarily always have to make it into a skills-based CV, because you may already have the skills gained through experiences. You may have the team working elements, the leadership elements, the strategy elements. I'm just throwing these things out there because a lot of the jobs look for, are you a good communicator? Can you work in a team? Are you able to, work on your own initiative? Can you prioritize? Can you do admin? They're kind of the soft transferable skills. So how you represent them, I think it depends on how much experience you actually have. Now, if you don't have a lot of experience, it's about creating a narrative, I guess, that will help you to see that you have those skills and to show them that you do have the ability to do the job. That's really what a transferable skill as well is. It's more like, it's about, I may not have direct experience in it, but I can learn it, or I can do it if I'm given the task because of this X, Y, Z because I've done it before, or I've learned the theory behind it, for example. So yeah, you could put in I think for you, I might put in professional highlights. That's one way of doing it as well, to show it in more of a, explicit way. The cover, I know I'm doing CVs, but cover letters also work with CVs. So you can always be more open with how you've gained certain skills and how they'll add value to employers in a cover letter. It's almost easier as well, and like that's really it as such. It's more about presentation of and the language again. Look at, okay, we're looking for someone who can communicate, who's an excellent communicator. A lot of the time they put that in, but and a CV I wouldn't put in excellent communicator. I'd try and make it more into so if you want to show up that you are an excellent communicator, you communicate every day. Every day you communicate with someone, whether it be, even if you're a work at home mum, or a mum in general, you have to you have to communicate with if you have young children, you have to communicate with the principals, you have to communicate with the schools, you have to communicate with, and how you engage with them compared to how you engage with other people is a skill in itself. So if you look at it like that, you then go, okay, why was I communicating with the principal? Oh, was it to suggest something, an improvement to the school maybe, or something like that, or to discuss something? Yeah, then you put that in as a transferable skill, so then you're showing how you put it into practice. I might have rambled there a wee bit, but it's one of those things that comes depending on the person as well. Like how it's put on the page depends on the person, I think, more so than,
And I think that is interesting, that sort of weight of soft skills and hard skills. And I suppose that would vary a little bit, obviously according to what you have, but to what the job description is. Yeah,
so the hard skills would be industry. Yeah, they would be like, market research, for example. I know I go marketing all the time. I think it's just the easiest thing to think of. But like quality control, or they may have more specific skills only to that industry. You may not have experience in it, and that's okay, because you also can show that you can learn a process, for example, because you may have done a process, and how you apply a process is the same. It's like you need to understand it, you need to then implement it, you need to monitor it, or you need to follow it, whichever it might be. So it's like, I suppose it's taking away the specific thing that they're looking for and looking at it broadly and seeing how you can relate it from what you've done and go, well, I kind of did it because this is sort of what this is, or I have experience in technical systems, but it may not be exactly that, but I can learn quickly. I can learn new systems quickly. So that's how you can transfer that ability to something more specific, which would be a hard skill as such. Do you know what I mean? That you'd have to learn or something. That's how I look at it anyway.
Very good. And we've touched on this as well, but this aspect of, this experience. So if you are looking to enter an industry that you perhaps haven't got experience in, you may have the skill set, but not necessarily experience within that industry. How best to manage that?
I think we may have, through my chatting, probably I have.
We have.
But again, I always look at it direct and indirect. That's how I look at it. And a job title does not mean that, you may have a job title that is completely different to what's advertised, but the job is exactly the same. So it's about also changing the perception of what you did do without looking at the title. Like the title is just a title. It's not actually what you did. It's just the title. Like sometimes, like I know in certain countries, an executive means, like here, an executive would mean a higher enough level, like mid-management, depending. But an executive, in the UAE, for example, is a low-level job. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So the duties aren't the same. Like, so they wouldn't have leadership over there or supervisory experience. So if you don't have experience in something that you are looking to branch into, look at how, again, the indirect experience you may have that relates to it. Because the industry will look for specifics, but you're kind of going, well, I've applied something similar in a different industry, and what you then need to try and do is go, and I have no issue in learning how this one works, or the differences between it, or something like that, you know.
And I think as well must be an interest, you know, to demonstrate an interest in that industry. I suppose where my head is, I know through one of the mums I've met, she was 17 years out, started her own business, legally trained, so she was running her own business in that field, and then actually applied to take on an HR role in a car company. So she had never had experience in a car company before, but what she did have is that intermediary liaison experience. That was what she was doing through her legal business and bringing different people together, and that's actually that was really what helped her secure the role in the car company. So I suppose what I'm saying is, don't let it completely. I know when I was looking, people kept saying to me, oh, you should stick in the education sector because that's where all my voluntary experience had been, or a lot of it had been, but actually it wasn't where I really wanted to go. So I didn't feel it was particularly helpful advice. It wasn't from you. It was from people.
I hope not. No, you're right. Like the industry, like people, they prefer you to have industry knowledge so that they won't maybe have to train you up into it, or you may not have to learn about the standards or regulatory bodies or the processes and things like that behind it. That's sort of, or even the environment, like if you have experience in the industry environment, you know how maybe certain industries are strict and deadlines and things like this, so you can work in that environment. But if you don't have that industry experience, but know that that environment is fast-paced, for example, but you've worked in a fast-paced environment before in another industry, that's how you relate it. You have no problem working in fast-paced environments, strict deadlines, because you've done that, but in a different capacity. But it shouldn't matter too much because you can relate it and transfer whatever you get here into there and then build. Do you know what I mean? So it's kind of, everything flows in. I know I may have touched on things before, but it does flow in. And that's how she probably got the job with the car company, is because like HR is quite legal. On the internal side, there's two sides to it. There's the people side, and then there's the company side. There's the, you know, so there's a lot in HR. So the legal side will help. Maybe they were looking for someone more legal as well to help with contracts and then things, and you gradually learn about the industry that way. So yeah, sorry, I don't keep going, but yeah, like you're right. Like it that's how you would combat the whole not having experience in the industry you want to move into, or even move back into, we'll say, because if you
certainly don't feel you need to be pigeonholed, or
you can branch out.
You can branch out.
You can always branch out. It's just about how. That's a challenge for those listening or watching. It's like a challenge in that they're going, but how do I do it, Lorraine? How do I do it? I do know, but it's very difficult. I understand it's difficult to write CVs, so do your best with it.
No, absolutely. And we've covered a huge amount, Lorraine. I see we're sort of coming up to 45 minutes. So I think now is probably quite a good, I've got no further questions. I think now's just a sort of good time to summarize. It's been very, very valuable listening to you. Thank you so much.
You'll hear me again next week.
I know. But next week is so important because I feel, and this week is, as I say, hugely important for me. The CV, of course, it's the linchpin. It's what you need. You need this document. As mums, we shouldn't be afraid. Don't be afraid of it. We have a lot to say. We have a lot of transferable skills. We have a huge amount of experience, and we need to appreciate it and not devalue our skill set at all. And working with someone like Lorraine is hugely, hugely beneficial. So, as I say, for me, the huge power of the CV is in that process right at the start, working with someone like Lorraine, who can just really help you understand everything that you have, you know, that you've learned, that you've got, the skill set you've got, how transferable they are. I remember as well, the other big aha moment for me was when you translated that into business language. You know, if you've been out for a while, you do, well, I certainly did. I lost the business speak. And actually, when you then see it on paper as well, how you come across, that was a hugely powerful moment for me, you know, having thought, well, I'm not gonna get anywhere. Suddenly I had a CV that was very workable, and I did go on to get interviews off the back of it. I decided to go a different route. I decided actually what I really wanted to do was run my own business, but actually off the CV, off reworking it, I did go on to get some interviews. So thank you for that. So it's a hugely powerful thing. You've talked to us about, you know, you're going to write it. It's going to be individual. You must, you know, write it in. The CV works at its best when it's written, when it's quite targeted, when you have got a role that you are specifically looking at, so you can understand the key skills, you can understand what the job description is asking, and your CV needs to answer that job description. That's what they're looking for. We've talked about the formatting, keeping it very clear, very readable, making sure all the valuable, everything is valuable, non-valuable, but the really valuable information is on that first page.
Or at least the heading, at least the heading anyway.
Yeah, and that can be, that valuable information can be, what's appropriate for the role. So it can be if you're still educating, taking courses, your professional highlights. It can be, we can work with it to make it answer the role according to the experience and the skill set that you are bringing to it. And then the thing with the career break is just not to actually make a big deal about it. We've talked about how you would bring in the relevancy of experience, the experience highlights. You do put dates on a CV, do you, or not anymore? You don't put your birth date, do you? But you do put...
No, you put years of experience and everything as well. And if you are, you know, if you are talking about your career break, just for others as well, for me, if it's less than 2 years, I wouldn't necessarily need to mention it. But first, look, it's a preference as well. Some people like to put in career break. If it's even less than 2 years, but always put years in, even if for the relevant experience, just because you can show like, it may have been a while back, but it might have been 7, 6 years or 12 years, whatever it might have been, you know, so you want to kind of show that you have that experience behind you. Sorry. No need for date of birth. No, it depends on where you're applying. I know that the British Isles and Europe and I think the US as well, and most of the Americas, they don't really need the date of birth. But in if you're applying to the Saudi Arabia or any of those Arabian countries, they do want the date of birth, like it's part of their thing. So that's just a cultural thing. But rule of thumb, don't put it in.
But make sure all your contact details are in, and of course in that would be your LinkedIn profile, which we are going to chat about next week, because certainly linking your CV with LinkedIn,
Yeah.
I don't know, just does really help. So your CV actually will work a lot harder if the audience that you're sending it to is already aware of who you are. You can land roles, not you can, but the process is easier if you have already built a connection with the person that is going to be receiving your CV. And so we'll be talking about LinkedIn next week. But I think that's all that, I mean, we've covered so much, Lorraine. I think that's all that. Anything else you want to add?
Yeah, like I have an ebook actually that I'll link as well to people. So anyone watching the replay or as well, don't worry, it'll be somewhere. But no, it's basically a guide on how to lay out the CV, how to design a CV and content and blogs. Like, so the website cvtipsandtricks.com has blogs. So, you know, if there are questions that are sent in after the fact, I've already mentioned this to Tamsin, I'll have a look to see if there's anything that can be related back to a blog or something like that. So yeah, hopefully, if you want more, let us know.
Yeah, you know where Lorraine McGuinness, CV tips and tricks, and highly recommend Lorraine. So Lorraine, thank you very, very much for your time this afternoon. Really appreciate it. I've taken away lots. So thank you. Always a pleasure to talk. And I hope you have a very good afternoon.
Yes. Bye, everyone. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.